Good morning, everybody. Well, it's good morning here where I am, and hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. And I'm Dennis, for those that don't know, and this is my Funky Brain. Our guest, Jean, she's a really inspiring, sober woman. She's been on the show before. I've been on her show, and she's dedicated to breaking down the walls of stigma and denial surrounding the disease of alcoholism, which is why we love her so much. She's a blogger of the blog UnPickled, and author of multiple books, including her newly released UnPickled Holiday Survival Guide, Staying Alcohol-Free During the Festive Season, which we're going to talk about here shortly. And she's host of the Bubble Hour podcast, which is an awesome sober podcast that I've had the pleasure of being on. Mrs. Jean McCarthy, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Hello from Canada.
So yeah, I'm excited that you're here. And then the main reason for our discussion today, since we've already been together a couple different times, is to talk about your new book, UnPickled Holiday Survival Guide. But maybe before that, you could do like an express 3-minute version of your story for our listeners, because I think that they like to hear that, you know, like what it's like. They see a couple of like successful people here with smiles and stuff. They don't see the journey that got us there. So I like to just talk about like the express version of your story before we dive into your book, if you don't mind.
So I have been alcohol-free for almost 10 years now. And I am, I guess, what you might call a high bottom alcoholic, which is that I didn't have a major catastrophe or health consequences of using alcohol daily. But it was taking its toll, and I was seeing a lot of red flags. And I was trying to quit and couldn't stop. And that alerted me to the fact that I couldn't moderate. That just wasn't working. And so I decided to quit before something really bad happened. And that was kind of a revelation to me that you could go that way. I thought you had to have something bad happen, and you had to be court mandated to meetings, and you had to have some kind of terrible Hallmark movie of a tragedy happen to you before you quit drinking. And instead, it was just really pragmatic. It was like, look, we don't have to smoke a pack of cigarettes to quit smoking. We don't have to gain 200 pounds to lose weight. We don't have to have melanoma to start wearing sunscreen. And we don't have to destroy our lives to realize that we are on a addictive trajectory, that we've flipped the switch, and things don't have to get worse before we go alcohol free. So I made that change. It was harder than I thought. And I just really believe that having no alcohol is much, much easier than trying to have some now and then. And it just keeps me sane and focused to stay alcohol free. And I absolutely love my life. I've learned to love who I am. And it turns out that was a lot of the reason why I drank, because as you stop numbing yourself every day, you start to realize, hey, who is this person underneath all this? Why do I need to be numb all the time to get through my day? What's wrong with my life, which I thought was perfect, that I need alcohol to get through it? And so little by little, I just started fixing little things about my life and addressing the fact that I really didn't like myself very much, and just started to make peace with myself and live more authentically, and finding true joy and true comfort instead of this Band-Aid of drinking away bad feelings. And it's just a really wonderful way to live, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and that was such a great express version. The one thing I really loved that you said is like, you know, I realized I didn't love myself so much.
Yeah.
And that's such a common thing. And now some people may not even have that problem. Like we all have different things that got us to where we ended up before we ended up quitting drinking. But it's important to note, like what you said, sometimes we have to realize like the alcohol, the drugs, or the whatever our addictive thing isn't the problem or the whole problem. It's what I'm using to cope with the real problem, which in my case, it's my funky brain. In your case, you didn't love yourself so much. So everybody out there who's listening, they're like, why can't I stop drinking? Well, we have to address the other issues. And then sometimes once we do that, like the other stuff, the alcohol and the drugs, they kind of sometimes go away because addressing the real issue. We were talking before the show, it's like, you know, not everybody's comfortable sitting with yourself for a long period of time or even like a minute.
I was drinking myself to sleep at night because I could stay busy all day long. But when I'd go to bed, then it was quiet and it was just me and my thoughts. And it was those few minutes or hours before I fell asleep that was intolerable because I couldn't distract myself from it. And
Yeah.
so I was essentially, looking back, drinking to perfectly time a blackout with falling asleep at night.
Wow. That's a good awareness right there, huh?
Yeah, scary.
That is scary. So awesome. So tell us about your latest book, UnPickled.
This is the book here, the UnPickled Holiday Survival Guide. And it is not a huge, thick book. It's a quick read, but this is addressing the fact that a majority of the mail that I was getting was coming from people who were trying to quit over New Year's and relapsing, or had quit earlier in the year but relapsed over the holiday period, because there's so much going on and so much of it is steeped around tradition-related alcohol. So we think of, spiced rum during the holidays, or eggnog, or champagne on New Year's, or wine at a Thanksgiving dinner. And all of these traditions that they had done over and over and over again their whole lives with other people would eventually pop up. So whether you quit drinking in January or you quit drinking in June, at some point you're going to have your first holiday season, and it tends to be really hard. People either just hang on by the skin of their teeth and get through it, or they relapse. And I wanted to pick that apart a little bit and think, okay, why is it so hard, and how can we make it easier for people to get through that? So I included in every chapter in this book a section for friends and family, so that they could read through this book and have a better understanding of how to host that sober person in their family, how to be supportive of them, that having, water and juice boxes that you give to the kids at the family dinner, like, you need to do better than that for the sober people in your family. So I included a section in every chapter for friends and family to look through as well. And that makes it a little bit easier, because sometimes in recovery, we have a hard time asking for what we need, because sometimes we have a hard time knowing what we need. And this book includes those talking points, so that maybe you're not sure how to tell your family that you don't want to do things the way they've always been done. But handing them this book and asking them to read that chapter might help them see it's not just the sober person being difficult or complaining. It's someone else saying, hey, this is really a good suggestion that everyone should think about.
Wow, that's a great approach. I love that. And I used to joke all the time in early sobriety. It was like from Halloween to the Super Bowl. It was like one big party. It was a great excuse to drink. But when should we start thinking about the holidays in our sobriety?
So the earlier you can think about it, the better. If you are standing on the doorstep of the party in your ugly sweater, about to ring the doorbell, better late than never. But if you can be thinking about it now before the invitations even start rolling in, that is great. Because like a lot of things we learn in recovery, some of the problems start with our expectations. And we don't even know that we have these expectations around the holidays, because we think that's just how it is. This is how my family has always celebrated this occasion. This is what we always eat. This is the music we always play. These are the costumes we always drag out. Whatever your family's ritual is, those have become your expectations, and we normalize them. And for some people, part of their expectation is that the dinner is going to be uncomfortable, because Uncle Larry is going to be there, and he's going to be, intolerably opinionated, and your sister's going to be there, and she's always so full of drama. And we pigeonhole other people, and we brace ourselves for how we think we're going to have to handle them. And there's all of these expectations we don't even really know that we have. Then there's another layer of expectations of what we think people expect from us. Do we think we're expected to give everyone a gift? Do we think we're expected to host a perfect party, look a certain way, give out homemade gifts, decorate our home? All of these things that are labeled as traditions or family traditions, or, this is the McCarthy way, this is how we do it. And we don't want to be the one that upsets that or doesn't live up to it, or maybe doesn't cherish a memory that we associate with love and comfort. And so now's the time to really ask that of yourself. Are you dreading these things? Do you actually like them? How do you feel about them? Do you want to do them? Or are you doing them because you like the approval that you get for doing them? And it's not just that there's conflict that we dread in family. There's something else that can happen too. And that is in happy families where everyone gets along. And the people that we really enjoy being around, if they are all normal drinkers, someone that can have one cup of eggnog and forget about it and wander off, whatever those weirdos do. We are around the people that we love and admire, and we think, I want to be like them. I want to fit in with this group. And I don't feel like I fit in if I'm not drinking. And maybe I'm not so bad. They're not bad people, you know, and our addiction looks for those little weak spots in our thinking, and especially looks for ways that we feel other than or left out. And it will exploit that into some kind of vulnerable thinking where the chatter starts of, you know, you can probably drink, you can probably have one eggnog so you fit in with these people you love. And we have to guard ourselves against that as well. So there's a lot to think of, but the sooner we can start thinking about it, the better. And then the invitations start rolling in, and we need to jump ahead to that and start really assessing those invitations. Don't say yes to every invitation. Really assess those invitations and decide, do you want to go? Because it's okay to not go. You know, it's okay. It's just another day. Yes, it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's, but it's also just another day. It's just another dinner. And the world won't stop if you don't go. Even if someone makes you feel a little guilty about it, they'll get over it. It'll be okay. If home in your PJs with a bubble bath and Netflix and a hot cocoa is where you need to be to protect your sobriety, that is okay.
I love hearing that. That was such a great perspective. And I think that a big message there is like, you know, we obsess about it way more than everybody else does. Nobody's thinking about their drinking. People without alcohol problems, they're not counting their drinks. They're just having a drink. We're like thinking, oh, am I having enough? Are they thinking about me not drinking? In most cases, they're not even thinking you're not drinking. And, you know, when I go to parties, almost every party I go to, which I don't really go to many anymore, at almost every party, somebody comes up and says, you know, I might be drinking too much, or my Uncle Larry or somebody I know that might have a problem, or would you be able to talk to him sometime or something like that? You'd be surprised how many people out there are struggling with something. It's either that or they're just not thinking about you. And it's nice to know, to hear you say, and hopefully people are hearing this, is like, you don't have to go to that party. And you also don't have to give long explanations. Like, do you want to drink? No, thank you. That's a perfectly good conversation to have, like, just like that. You don't have to be like, no, I'm not going to drink because I'm screwing my life up. It's falling apart. My relationship is bad and all my health problems. Just say, no, thank you.
One of my favorite tips is to show up with your own beverage, you know, your bottle of sparkling juice or your little case of LaCroix or whatever, and just say to the host right off the hop, hey, this is my treat for tonight. Is it okay if I put this in your fridge? Don't worry about me. I'll help myself. And then they can just tick you off the list. They're just trying to be a good host. And part of being a good host is make sure everyone has enough to eat and enough to drink. And so if they know that they don't have to keep checking on you, then that's good. And if you know that they're not going to keep asking you what you want, you can just go get it yourself without being rude. That's a really great way to manage it. And then you're not stuck drinking the juice boxes or the Kool-Aid or whatever kids drink has been set out because they forgot about the non-drinkers.
Yeah, and that's a great tip too. And along those lines, I was going to save this for later, but I love how throughout your book you offer these reflection exercises and tools. I mean, it's so great. And like, it's easy to write a book where you're like, here, do this and do that, and here's how I got so, like, all this stuff. But specifically, like, here's a reflection exercise. Here's a tool you can use to get through these, you know, troubling times if you have any cravings that come up. Like, that's awesome. What are some of the tools? Like, where did you come up with that? And what are some of your favorites that you used?
Well, I've been interviewing people for 8 years now on the Bubble Hour. So like you, I've had hundreds of conversations with people that are doing great things. So I've learned a lot from them. So I've borrowed a lot of really good tips from other people. I really believe that even though there's excellent programs out there that have really rigid rules and ideas on how to get sober, there's also a certain amount of managing your own life that you need to do your way so it fits for you. So that's why the reflection exercises are more things to think about and then decide how you want to handle this rather than this is the only way to handle this. Because it's your recovery, your way. That's the only way it's going to stick, is if you make it work for you in your life. So some of the things I like to encourage people to do is to think about, say, for example, if you're hosting a party, what can you do in your house to make it, to give yourself some little breaks? So can you make a little hidey hole for yourself somewhere that you can excuse yourself for 10 minutes and go and meditate in a closet, or have some beautiful hand lotion and a couple of bottles of water and some music, and just make a little nest for yourself somewhere that you could go and recharge yourself. No one's going to know. They might think you're out getting more ice or, in the restroom or what have you. If your party is going well, no one's going to miss you for a few minutes. It's perfectly fine to go and recharge that way. I really like for people to sit down and think about what their expectations are around the holiday and how they could do things differently. And ways to say no thank you. That's a really important exercise, and I always encourage people to do this. Make a list of ways to say no thank you when someone offers you something you don't want, and then look in the mirror and practice saying it, like, oh, no thanks, I brought my own drinks. Oh, I'm really good, thank you. I'm super happy with my water. Or nope, I've got this imported French bubble water and it's such a treat for me. So just to practice at home in your bathroom, because if you try saying these things, and it feels really goofy, it seems silly, but when you've said them a couple of times out loud, when you need them in an uncomfortable moment, when you're having that deer in the headlights reaction of, oh no, oh gosh, this is embarrassing, I have to say no now, and I don't like to make someone else uncomfortable. Well, your brain, instead of inventing what to say, can remember what to say. And that's easier. So there's actually a purpose to it, as goofy as it feels, and it helps so much.
Yeah, and that's reprogramming our subconscious mind, because for years we programmed our subconscious minds to be like, yes, let's have a drink, let's have more, give me 3, and instead of just 1. So now it's just going to take a little time to reprogram that and be like, no thanks, or yeah, I'm okay, I'm driving tonight. Like, I mean, again, keep it simple too. Like, people don't need to hear like the whole story. Just say no thank you. What you said, like, have that little hiding hole. I always say to my clients all the time, I'm like, go sit on the toilet for 5 minutes, bring your phone, and like relax, just like start over. You don't have to wait till tomorrow morning, 16 hours to start your whole day over. Just like go in. If you're uncomfortable, go sit on the toilet for 5 minutes. Like you said, no one's going to be like, oh my God, everybody stop. Like, where did Gene go? They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about, I want more eggnog and what's for dinner.
Exactly. And I'm sure that we're both charming, witty, wonderful guests, but no one's going to miss us for 3 to 5 minutes if we slip out.
Yeah, well put.
Another thing I really like to do is when you arrive, that is the perfect time to tell the host, hey, I have another engagement tonight, so I might have to slip out. So if you notice I'm gone, thank you. I'll thank you now for inviting me. This is a fantastic looking evening. I'm so excited to be here. But if you notice I'm gone, it's because I have to get to this other thing. So then you can just slip out. And if someone does say, oh my gosh, where did Dennis go? Where did Jean go? The host knows. Oh, don't worry, they had to go somewhere else.
Oh, that is awesome. I never heard that little tip. That's a good one. I like that.
I've used it a lot. And what I do, as I said, in one hand, I show up with my beverages that I've brought for myself. In the other hand, I bring a little hostess gift. So a gift bag with some tea towels or a little book or a little book, some little gift for the host. And as you're giving them that gift, that's your chance to say, this is for you. Thanks for inviting me. I may have to leave. So it creates that moment for you. And then as soon as you start to feel that, you'll know it when it happens, that feeling of, I'm so over this. You know, people are starting to get sloppy. You start to get tired. You've said no, maybe for the 100th time. You feel your grin is kind of starting to freeze in place. As soon as you start to feel your defenses are wearing down, that's a great time to say, oh, I've got to go to my other thing. Now, your other thing might be a bubble bath. The other thing you go to might be your pajamas. No one needs to know that.
That's right. And you know, one thing I love what you talked about is transfer behavior. Like I call it cross addiction, but it's like using different things, and for the same things we were talking about earlier. It's like my mind is taking over, so I need things to like calm my mind. But how do you talk about transfer behavior, and why do we need to watch for it?
So the first time I heard about this, someone called it whack-a-mole. Remember that old carnival game where the little
Yeah, I
gopher
did.
pops up and you have to hit it on the head? Sometimes it feels like that with our maladaptive coping behaviors. So I think that we all start out as kids, you know, maybe we like sugar a little too much, or we have these things that become our coping addictions or coping strategies. But when we use something addictive as a coping strategy, so when we start getting older and we use alcohol, as soon as we're using it as a coping strategy, well, that's an addictive substance. So using it repeatedly is going to put you in a susceptible position to become addicted. So there's other process addictions as well. So there's some things that some people are susceptible to that it can set off the same pleasure reward circuitry in their brain can get hijacked by this. So that can be it can be gambling, it can be food, it can be sex, it can be shopping. I mean, it can be things that seem benign, and it can be things that anything that we do too much of can become a problem in our life, right? So it can be video games. So these things that are, the world doesn't frown on them quite as much as it frowns on drugs and alcohol, but they can take over your life in that same way. So when it comes to something like sugar, sugar can be really quite helpful with alcohol cravings, because often the effect of a sugar crash feels a lot like an alcohol craving. And so when you think you're craving alcohol, having something sweet can light up the pleasure reward circuitry in your brain and help to negate your alcohol craving. It also confuses your palate a little bit, because most alcohol doesn't pair that nicely with something sweet. So so it kind of it can negate your craving. However, it is possible, if you're using sugar all the time, to then develop another problem, you know, because food addiction can very much be riding the ups and downs of a sugar high. So we have to just be aware of these things and know that there's a difference between leaning on something else to help us get off of alcohol, if we're trying to do that, versus just transferring our behavior, our addictive behavior, to that other substance.
Yeah.
And I think that this circles back to something we talked about earlier, which is when you stop using a substance and you start working on the problems behind that substance, the need for constant comfort starts to diminish. And then you're not always feeling like you're living your life in a way that needs to be completely soothed all the time, because you're living a little more authentically, and you're not constantly needing to peel yourself off the wall. So then what you find is you don't need as many of those comforts, and so you're not leaning as hard on other things. But it's really important to be aware of that stuff, and to know that that one thing can completely take over from another. You can just pick up where you left off. I don't know if you read the book by Amy Dresner, My Fair Junkie, but she talks about that, how love addiction and sex addiction just completely took over from her drugs and alcohol. So she was abstinent from drugs and alcohol, but destroying her life with other behaviors and really putting herself in dangerous situations and not making the connection that was a simple replacement until she was, really, really hit a low bottom and had to apply recovery to all aspects of her life.
Yeah, well, the biggest addiction in the world, codependency.
Yeah.
And we can't say, there was a philosopher, and I forget how far back this goes, but he's like, all of man and women's problems come from our inability to sit quietly in a room by ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
like,
true.
who am I if someone isn't telling me who I am?
Yes, and I have to be doing something because I don't want to just be alone with my thoughts. And what you were just talking about was instant gratification. It's like, if I can just sit for a few minutes and whatever craving or thought that I'm having is like going through my head, a lot of times it's like, all right, I'm insecure, I'm fearful, I'm resentful, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm happy, whatever it is. I can sit for a few minutes and just feel the feeling and let it go through. The problem is, like, I can't sit with it. I need a drink. I'm overwhelmed. I need a drink. I'm overwhelmed. I need to smoke a joint. I'm overwhelmed. I need to watch porn. I'm overwhelmed. I need to eat a pound of cookies. I'm overwhelmed, and I could just sit with this for a few minutes and let it go through me to the other side. And we're going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Jean. I really enjoyed our conversation once again. So how can we buy your book? How can we get in touch with Jean?
My book is on Amazon, or you can order it from your favorite bookstore. Any bookstore can get it in for you. It's available as a paperback or an ebook, and it's on Apple, Kobo, Kindle, all the devices you can get it on. You can learn more about me, jeanmccarthy.ca, because I'm in Canada, and you can link to my books from there. And my podcast, The Bubble Hour, is on all the usual podcast platforms. And UnPickled blog is out there on the internet. You can read about my sober journey from day one to today.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. And I'm hoping I can come back on your show one day because I enjoy talking to you too.
I'd love to have you back.
And thanks everybody for tuning in to the Funky Brain podcast. Stay safe this holiday season. If you don't know how to do that, order Jean's book. That'll help get you through that. Have a beautiful day today. Enjoy your life. Enjoy each day. Be grateful. Live in the moment. And I'll talk to you soon. So you can't think your way into a new way of acting. You have to act your way into a new way of thinking and being. Hi, I'm Dennis Berry, best-selling author, speaker, and life coach for addiction recovery. So many people are stuck in their addiction, whether it's like drugs or alcohol or food or shopping or sex or money, and they think they could just stop or try to figure it out on their own, but they don't change anything in their lives. Nothing changes if nothing changes. In order for change to happen, you have to change something. My clients will be like, oh, I'll stop tomorrow, or if this happens, then I stop, or someday I'll just give it up. And then they just sit around and think, and hope for different or better results, but it doesn't happen. You have to take action. Action most people aren't willing to take. People don't become willing until they're in enough pain, me included. And unfortunately, they wait, and time passes by. Even if you are willing, you don't even know where to begin. And that's where I come in. In my best-selling book, Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life, I talk about the how approach. How do I get sober? How do I stop doing drugs? How do I become healthier? How do I have more successful relationships? How do I become more financially successful? And the answer is how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I have to honestly admit that there's a problem. I have to honestly admit that things aren't going well and there needs to be changes. And then once I do that, the door opens and I become open to seeing new ways of living. And then I become willing to make those changes. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. That's why I'm here to help. And, I've been working with clients for over 15 years and helping them get clean and sober and change their lives and achieve inner peace and success. If you or somebody you love is struggling and doesn't know where to begin and how to make those changes to get to where they need to be, give me a call. Not tomorrow or in a week from now when you're hungover and your life is falling apart. Call now. Start making that change today, and you'll be glad that you did. I'm sending you love and good vibes. Have a great day today.